What's up, tubers? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a little, not really a DIY so much as just how I do rust and patina. You can see on the lower right of the fender well there's some rust holes. In the upper left, there's some multicolor patina bleeding through. So I'm going to go through a slideshow with a voiceover of that and show you how I do it, starting with the holes and what I use, the salt and the tools and whatnot. So I'll start by drilling some holes in the body, the area that I want to be rusted. Just a few, not too many, you don't want to overdo it. One thing I've learned with the years that I've done faux work is you want your inconsistencies to be inconsistent, if that makes any sense at all. You don't want the same pattern to repeat over and over again, or it shows. Nothing looks worse than a bad faux job. I say that being a house painter for many, many years, worked on $1 million homes, and making something brand new look old. Kind of got a little bit of experience in it, so take what you will from what I'm about to show you, and we'll go from there. So I made some holes, just a few different angles and stuff. And then I like to use the CA glue to soften the plastic a little bit. It kind of helps to make it a little more pliable. And then I'll take, I found that my scribing tool works best because it's got a point and an edge with a razor on it, so I can kind of dig out the holes and, chop them a little bit and make them look more like rust holes than just actual round holes drilled in plastic. So once we've got that to where we like it, I'll put some primer on it. I prefer the red primer, because it actually dries kind of brown and looks like rust when it's revealed. So sadly I don't have a picture of it here, but red primer, flat red primer. It's usually used for red oxide for priming metal components, but whatever. So I'll spray that on, and sorry about the blurry picture. And here's a better shot of the rust holes, and then you can see where I kind of gouged it out a little bit to make it look a little more like decayed metal, where, just the plain holes just look like the holes. And you can see where once it's dried a little bit, it kind of takes on more of a brownish old rusted look. So once we've got that, then we'll start to we'll sand it down a little bit to get rid of some of those lumpies and stuff that's sticking out, to make it look a little flatter. Then cover it again with some more of the same primer to make sure that it gets in those holes, make sure it goes inside all the holes and valleys for later when it reveals, it'll look like rust. So then I'll start with some just basic sea salt chunks, and these were a little bit too big. You can see they were a little bit too large for what I wanted, so I kind of just took the lid and smashed them a little bit. And then you take a little bit of water, just basic water, and a cotton swab or a Q-tip, and put it on the area where you want the rust to be, or the salt to be, excuse me. Wet the area a little bit, not too much. You don't want too much water on there. But then you put the water on, and then you just sprinkle the salt chunks over it. Again, inconsistencies to be inconsistent. You want your spots you don't want to line them up and keep them all in the same direction. Then I'll take it and I'll put, once the water part dries a little bit, I'll take and spray from a distance. You can see here I've fogged it from a good 2 feet away, so it's not laid on too thick, but it's enough to leave a base color on top of that red. And then here I picked off a couple pieces to then go back and fog it again with a different color, so that will also reveal. I found that the more colors the better, and usually wanting to start with your darkers and then go light. That'll make more sense towards the end when we show the reveal. So then once that kind of dries a little bit, and I also want to say that I am a little impatient. I didn't let the paint dry or cure as long as I probably should have, but in this instance, it actually works in your favor. so that the paint isn't fully hard and it sands out a little bit easier. So the elbow grease takes a little bit less. And so then I'll cover that with my flat color, the flat black, as you see here. Pretty thick, laid it on pretty thick so that it definitely does have a thicker layer between the red and the gray. Let that dry a little bit, not too long. I did this whole thing in probably about a half an hour. And then I'll, again, fog my finish color on. In this case, I've used, I think it was that Sublime Green. Such a pretty color. But then again, I fogged it just like in that shot of the gray where I was a good 2 feet away to kind of give it a thinner coat. It dries a little bit before it even hits the surfactant. Fancy word for surface. And then, once that kind of dries a little bit where it's, not tacky to the touch, then I'll go back in and gently with a toothpick pick the salt nuggets off. You don't want to scrape it too much, or you can actually scratch it. Like you see on the left side of the fender well at the bottom, it's got more of a scratch effect that it's kind of, those don't look quite right when you go back to sand them later. You want to keep that to a minimum. So you just sort of pick it with a toothpick. And then you can see in the background, there's the various grades of sandpaper that I'll use. I'll start with the 800, and it doesn't matter, usually lighter or a more coarse grit to begin with to cut it, and then a finer grit to finish it with. So in this case, I've had some 800 wet and dry. Get the area wet a little bit. Again, you don't want to scratch it too much, kind of picking those salt nuggets off of the little remaining tiny bits. And then come back in and lightly wet sand it. And I mean lightly. You don't want to dig too much because the paint is still soft and hasn't cured and hardened enough. So those circles and scratches will show through. And then I'll move on to the finer grit, the 1200, and you can see here where it's actually really revealed those multiple colors. You get that nice aged patina look. And the trick is circles, small concentric circles, not pushing too hard. So that way it reveals in a rounder fashion than just sort of back and forth square hatch pattern. And then I'll go back in and reopen up the holes that probably at this point have filled up with paint and dust or whatever. So I'll reopen those holes up again and then go back and give it a light sand one more time to get this finished product. You can see the gouges and the holes and the patinas and the different colorations. It comes out really nice in my opinion. I'm really happy with this product. And I hope this helped for you in making your new models look old. Again, thanks for watching. Glad you came along on this little ride. Give me a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe, all that kind of horse hockey. And we'll see you in the next one.